Here's OCD.
Dr. Sleep is directed by Mike Flanagan, and this movie is a sequel to the 1980s The Shining, which is adapted from Stephen King's novel. Also, this movie is adapted from Stephen King's novel, and this movie stars Ewan McGregor and Rebecca Ferguson. And basically, this movie took place decades after the first Shining, where we see Dan Torrance, played by Ewan McGregor, is all grown up from the first movie, and he still has the shine from the event of the first movie, so he tries to be an alcoholic to get that away from him, until we find out that he is not the only one that has the shine. There's also this young girl who has the brightest shine out of them all, and it gets her in trouble because this new gang called redruM are after her, and it's led by Rose the Hat, played by Rebecca Ferguson. Now, I gotta say, the first Shining is one of my favorite horror films of all time. I love Stanley Kubrick's direction with that movie, and a fun fact about the first Shining, Stephen King himself, who wrote the book, hated Stanley Kubrick's interpretation of The Shining. He hated the movie. So that's a pretty interesting criticism with these. But The Shining, one of the greatest horror films of all time. So when I found out The Shining is making a sequel, I got pumped for it. I never even know The Shining is a sequel, and it is also based on Stephen King's novel as well with the same name. So that's pretty interesting. And also the director of this film, Mike Flanagan, is directing this project. He directed Oculus, Gerald's Game, Ouija Origin Evil, Hush. He's one of the most underrated horror directors to me of all time. Like, literally no one even talks about him or appreciates him, and I feel bad for Mike Flanagan because he's a great horror director. So this is probably his biggest project he's ever done, and that's kind of scary as well to take on a project like this because The Shining, one of the greatest films of all time. So making a sequel to that movie may be a difficult task to make that as good as the first, or make it as good in general. But still, the trailers of this movie look absolutely amazing. It has the Shining type feel, so I'm really excited to see Dr. Sleep, especially with all the positive reviews. I got excited to see it, and I gotta say, guys, Dr. Sleep was really freaking good. Now, let's talk about what I liked about Dr. Sleep. First, the cast. Ewan McGregor in the film as Dan Torrance, the adult version of Dan Torrance, was a great character in this film. You do feel like he's Dan Torrance as an adult, because in the first Shining, he was a kid, and he started having the shine and seeing all the visions in that hotel, and in this movie, he still has that threat and nightmare inside of him, and he tries to use alcohol to get him out of it, and you do feel sympathy for Dan in this movie, because his life is basically shit after the events of the first Shining, and you do follow him along, and you do kind of burst in tears for his character, because his character was very sympathy in the film, and Ewan McGregor, fantastic performance in this film. Also, Rebecca Ferguson as Rose the Hat, the lead of the redruM, she was fantastic in this film. She is a great villain in this film. She is very menacing, she's very creepy in the film, and I think no one could play Rose the Hat as better as Rebecca Ferguson did. Mike Flanagan did a perfect casting for this film. Also, this little girl, her name is Ebra in the film. Oh my god, I don't know who this actress is, but she needs to win Best Breakthrough Actress because she was fantastic in the film. I don't know what other films she's been in. I searched her, and this is the only film she's been in, and she did a great job for her first role, and she is actually kind of has a sense of humor in this film, but also she's quite awesome in a couple of bits, and I thought she's a really good young actress. And usually kid actors, they get on my nerves, not her. She was great in this film. But I gotta say, the thing that really stood out for me in Dr. Sleep is the way the movie looks. The cinematography of this film is absolutely unbelievable. Mike Flanagan handles the camera work in this movie so freaking well, and it's definitely different to the original Shining that Stanley Kubrick directed, and that's the thing I was worried about. Is this movie going to kind of like rip off Stanley Kubrick's shots and stuff? No. This is Mike Flanagan's style. Judging from the opening scene, you're like, this is a different direction they are taking. And I think the camera work that Mike Flanagan has done in this film is absolutely amazing. I think his camera work is probably some of the best camera work I've seen this entire year. Absolutely. This movie is terrifying as shit. But it's not terrifying as the most jump scare-ish way, which there are some jump scares in this film. But what's great about the jump scares, they put it in the right level and they put it in the right moment. But most of this movie is all about imagery and disturbance. And when you see Rose the Hat doing creepy shit, you literally feel like you're on the edge of your seat the entire freaking time. This is a very gripping movie. Like, it has a lot of disturbing moments throughout start to finish, and I really enjoy myself with the scares in Dr. Sleep. The score in this movie is also fantastic. The theme is in this film, but also you get to hear more stuff, and I gotta say the score in this movie is so intense, it's so gripping, and it works well with the scares in this movie. But is Dr. Sleep as good as its predecessor? Absolutely not. I would say this is one of the better horror sequels out there, and probably one of the better Stephen King adaptations out there, and probably the best of this year, definitely, because most Stephen King adaptations, like, you know, In the Tall Grass, It Chapter 2, they really disappointed me. And I think Dr. Sleep is kind of like, finally, we get another good Stephen King adaptation since the first It that came out in 2017. And I'm really grateful for that. But still, just because I said that, it's not as good as the first Shining. I think the first Shining is always going to be a classic no matter what. But Dr. Sleep, to me, is one of those sequels that it really does it well. It's a great follow-up to The Shining. This film connects really well to the first Shining, and Mike Flanagan did such a great job directing that. Overall, guys, I really freaking love Dr. Sleep. This is probably my favorite horror film this entire year. The cinematography is great, the acting, fantastic overall. It does give me a big nostalgic feels of The Shining, which is really great, and this movie is a terrifying movie. It's one of those movies that it just felt like a Stephen King novel just burst out of the screen. I'm going to give Dr. Sleep an A. So guys, have you guys seen Dr. Sleep? What do you think of the film? Let me know in the comments below if you like the film, hate the film, or you thought it's okay. Make sure you guys follow me on Facebook, Stardust, Instagram, and Twitter. Keep contacting me, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel, notified for my latest reviews, and have a nice day.